Welcome to Champion's Journey. I'm Matt Davidson. From an early age, I've had the privilege of learning from world champions and world-class performers, and I've always been fascinated by what drives them to the pinnacle of achievement. In this podcast, I interview high performers to learn more about the habits and rituals which have helped them on the road to championship victory. Welcome to episode 5 of A Champion's Journey. I recently had the unforeseen and incredible opportunity to have a conversation with one of my heroes, Dan Brodsky-Chenfeld. Dan BC is a 6-time world champion skydiver and co-founder of the highly successful skydiving team, Arizona Airspeed. While training for competition in 1992, Dan survived a catastrophic plane crash which killed 16 people, including 2 members of his own skydiving team. He spent 6 weeks in a coma with severe traumatic injuries, which included a broken neck and collapsed lung. During his long and painful road to recovery, Dan resolved to rebuild his strength and make his return to competitive skydiving. Not only did Dan return to skydiving, but he went on to lead his team in winning an impressive 6 world championship titles. After spending nearly 40 years in the sport, Dan has enjoyed continued success, not only as a skydiving competitor, but as a coach, role model, and mentor. In addition, he continues to motivate and inspire countless others with his remarkable story as an author and public speaker. Dan's book, Above All Else, gives a detailed and personal account of his deeply emotional and profoundly inspirational journey. Please welcome Dan BC. Welcome to the podcast, Dan. I really appreciate you being here. This is a real treat for me, and it's a unexpected opportunity. You're out here training with Arizona Airspeed 8, and fortunately I get the chance to jump with you again tomorrow, and that's going to be awesome. I'm super stoked about that.
Man, I cannot believe we even pulled this group together, and to have you and Kurt out here especially, it's going to be just amazing.
Yeah, it's great. Such a special opportunity. You've been a hero of mine since I've been just a young skydiver, and you've been a role model for me and everything you do, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you handle yourself in business, the competitor that you are. And I was just curious, who were your heroes from a young kid and up until when you were a young skydiver?
You know, I had the good fortune of having some great role models in my family. My grandfather, my father, my mother, just really the good fortune of that. So I had a good chance to get off on the right foot. And in skydiving, there's been several people, a few very special individuals. Chet Poland was one person who I'm sure most people now haven't heard of, but Chet was a guy who had actually started jumping in the 20s, in the barnstorming days. And when I was running the drop zone, the Greene County drop zone in Ohio in the 80s, Chet was living in his van. He was in his mid-80s at that point. He was still cruising around. He had a little puppy with him in the van. He'd go and spend the winters in DeLand, and he'd spend the summers up in Greene County. Started jumping again when we had tandems. It was just, you could just see how he really appreciated just life and appreciated enjoying every day, everything that he did. A nice, simple, basic, low-stress life, and was just a terrific guy to hang out with and to learn a lot about life from. And on the other end, I had the Chet in his 80s and James Lane as a young kid who actually taught me a lot about myself through him and through all the times that we had together, watching him grow and growing myself in the process.
What kind of lessons did he teach you?
I taught James to jump when he was 14 years old. And when you're a kid and you learn to do anything, you're so free about it. You're not concerned with winning and losing and being better than anybody else. You're just absolutely enjoying the process, enjoying the activity, just the pure love of the moment and the activity itself. And as you get started in the competition, you try not to get too stressed about your performance. You try not to be too worried about screwing up. But it takes you a while to learn to do that. And there was nothing like having a young kid who just completely careless about all that, who would just, out of the pure love of it, fly better than anybody I'd ever seen, to remind me to quit stressing out so much, relax, let's just do it for the fun of it and go from there. And that was a great reminder to have in competition when you're in the heat of the battle, as you know, and it's not going to do you any good to stress out. If you can remind yourself to just chill and enjoy it, usually do a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. What age were you when you first started skydiving?
18.
18. And what inspired you to do it?
I remember as a little kid, there's a couple of different TV shows or movies in the 60s that had skydiving, or sport parachuting as it was called then. And I remember seeing it and just seeing people in free fall, and it looked like they were flying. And I always loved the idea of flying. I mean, I loved watching birds fly. I loved superheroes who could fly. And just the idea, I would fantasize about it, pretend I was flying when I was a little kid. But you don't think that it's something that's possible. And then I saw these films of people in free fall, and they were flying. They were unattached to anything. It was just them flying their bodies. And this is a long time ago. And even then I thought, man, I've got to do that. As soon as I can, I've got to do that. And as soon as I turned 18, it was my freshman year at Ohio State. Springtime, I went out as soon as I could.
Nice. Do you remember what those movies were?
What was the one barnstorming one? I'm sure you've heard of it.
Was one of them the Gypsy Moths?
Gypsy Moths was one. Then there was another TV show at that time, and I don't remember the name of it, but I'm sure we could Google it and find out.
No worries.
Enough.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I was 5-6 years old, and I just don't even remember where I saw it, but I just saw people in free fall. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and it still is.
Were you competitive as a younger guy, or did wanting to compete as a skydiver come later to you in your progression?
I never was all that competitive, really, but I never found something that I loved as much as I loved doing this. And when you love an activity that much, and it's something like skydiving, a sport like this, the better that you can get at it, the more fun that it is. Right? I mean, it's fun from the beginning. Every jump is great. There's never been a jump I didn't love. But the jumps that go as you planned are more fun than the ones that don't. And the better, the faster that you get, the quicker that you can dive, the quicker that you can turn, the more points that you can do, the more you're able to actually fly, the more fun that it is. And just towards the, continued enjoyment of the sport, being on a team was the best way to continue to grow and continue to excel. And then somehow the competitive nature just struck up there.
Nice. What was your first team that you were part of?
Greene County Fusion, Greene County Sport Parachute Center in Xenia, Ohio.
Who all was on that team?
It was John Woody, Jim Fangmeyer, and Mark Badillo. And our first year at the Nationals was 1983.
1983, that's awesome.
Which I believe was the first year for Scott Rhodes, Chris Wagner, people you might be familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. Golden Knights for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so, you've been a role model of mine as far as fitness goes as well. Have you always been fit since, you were a kid in high school, or did that come later on once you started skydiving?
No, I was always, when you're a kid, you're doing so many different sports, and I never really excelled in a particular sport, but we're playing all the time. I wasn't on the sports team at school, but we were playing football, we were playing baseball, we were at the park. So, you generally stay in decent shape when you're a kid. The one thing that really motivated me to start working out and actually training more was I was in college. I was sitting in a bar just hanging out with some friends and suddenly had a really serious pain in my chest. And I thought, man, I really haven't drank that much. I don't know what's going on here. And I left and walked back to my apartment and then just was feeling terrible. I went over to the hospital and found out that I had a spontaneous pneumothorax, which is when your lung just collapses on its own for no apparent reason. They were explaining this to me, and I was 19 or something at the time, and they said, your lung just collapsed. I said, how does it just collapse? I was just sitting there at a bar, and they said, well, you've got some weak tissue, just like a balloon that's got a weak area on it, and it popped, it tore, and it collapsed. I was like, well, what do we do? How do you fix that? How do you protect that? And they said, there's really nothing you can do to strengthen the tissue in your lungs. I said, there's no exercise, there's nothing, there's nothing we can do. And I said, well, and they said, what else is going to cause this? And they basically described opening shock being the pressure that could put on your body would be something that could make it happen again.
Wow.
And I said, well, what if I try to build up a shield? What if I can't protect the lung itself? What if I just try to get bigger and build up a shield to protect it? I said, well, that's probably the best thing you could do.
Wow. And you haven't had any problems with it since?
No.
That's incredible.
No, it's been good. So I started working out all I could except for my legs, so which I get harassed up on a fairly regular basis.
Well, that's a common thing for guys, right? We look in the mirror and want to work out the upper body. Yeah. You're also a pilot, a private pilot. At what point in your skydiving career did you decide to do that? Was that before skydiving or after you started?
No, it was shortly after I started jumping, and I decided I wanted to get involved with all aspects of skydiving and of running the drop zone. As soon as I got out of college, I took over the drop zone I was running. I took over the drop zone I was jumping at, Greene County. And if you're going to do that, especially in the 80s, you have to be able to do everything. So I got my rigger's ticket, I got my pilot's license. As soon as there were AFF and tandem ratings to get, I got those. I got the garbage man license, toilet cleaning license, grass mowing license. You're familiar with that.
Yeah.
So it was, early on, right from the start. This main core, this main group. And no teams at that point were doing more than 150, 200 jumps a year. So we decided we're going to do 200 jumps a year and really try to push it and compete with the top level of teams. And in '86, we actually got our first medal, silver medal. We tied the Golden Knights. One of the teams won, and we tied the other Golden Knights team for second place.
Nice.
After 2 jump-off rounds.
Wow.
We're still tied.
2 jump-off rounds.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
It was a great competition. And at that same time, the tag team was starting, which was the French team. Had gotten sponsorship by TAG, the watch company TAG.
Yeah.
And suddenly now, they were sponsored with everything. The guy who owns TAG was a jumper who bought them a Pilatus Porter of their own, hired a full-time pilot to fly for them, bought them each 2 sets of parachute equipment, hired people to pack for them. Nobody, you packed for yourself back then. There was nobody who had packers. Hired air-to-air video and ground-to-air video, because that's how it was being judged at that time. Paid these guys all salaries and moved to DeLand, and we're doing 1,000 jumps a year at that point. And we came up to, we got up to second place, and I was thinking in '87, man, this is going to be our chance. This is our chance right here. And then TAG came in and completely upped the ante, where if you wanted to stay competitive anymore, you couldn't do 200 jumps a year. You had to do way more than that.
Do you remember what the average was around that time?
They averaged, the Air Bears in '85 averaged just over 11, and the tag team won in '87 with 13 something.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's quite a jump. Yeah.
But I had set my goals on wanting to win the world meet at that point, and the tag team upped the ante completely. The Golden Knights saw what the tag team was doing, and then got a lot more serious about their training too. The Army invested a lot more in the team to be able to try to keep that up. And in Ohio, when you're running a drop zone, there's only so much you can do. So I decided if I wanted to compete at that level and wanted to have a chance of winning the world meet, I better move south.
And where exactly south did you go to?
I ended up in Coolidge, actually. DeLand had the main 4-way team at that point, the main civilian team, which was Tommy Pyrus's team and Jack Jeffrey's team. And I thought about trying to go down there and getting, hooked up with them and getting on that team, but for reasons thought that probably wasn't going to work out too well. So I headed west where the Paris Gumbies were, and the Gumbies were another one of the next in line top teams who I had hung out with a lot, and I thought maybe I can get some of those guys to quit their jobs and go full time and get really serious about this. but they had more sense than that. And on the way, I met, 3 guys who had never competed at the Nationals before, who were in Coolidge. And we put the first Coolidge Force team together in the end of '88, beginning of '89.
And who was on that team?
That was Jim Hotsey, Jeff Root, and Mike Trad. And Mike, who was flying for me in Ohio, moved out to Arizona to go to school and joined the team then.
And how long did you have that team together?
That team exactly for 1 year. And then George Jika came in for Jeff Root, and we did it for 2 more years. So 89, 90, 91.
Now, at that time, George Jika, he was in the military service?
George was he was a major in the Army, and he was training with his team at Skydance in the summer of '89. We went up to Skydance to we thought would be get out of the heat in Coolidge. It was pretty hot in Skydance too in the middle of the summer, and met George there and became great friends. Hit it off there, and he made the mistake of saying, "Hey, if you ever need somebody for a team, let me know." And I put that in my pocket and called him a few months later, and he got out of the military and come join the team in Coolidge.
Nice. That's quite a sacrifice.
It was. He went from that to living in a trailer with 4 of us, living in a van,
Yeah, when you're doing what you love, though, and you're with a bunch of great people, you're surrounded with great people, and you're doing that. It's yeah, I'm sure he was digging it at the time.
I don't think he regrets it, but I'll have to ask him.
So after that team, what was the after that year? Did you guys go to nationals and compete with that lineup?
We went to nationals. We came in. We got the bronze medal in '89, the bronze medal in '90. We were winning in '91 up until round 6, and then had a triple bust when points were 3-point bust then. So we lost 9 points in 1 round.
Wow.
Weren't able to recover from that. Got the bronze medal that year again. And then had an offer to go out to Paris, to Skydive Paris, and start a new team there.
Nice.
So then went out there and started Paris Air Moves.
And who was on that team?
That was Troy Ridgely, James Lane, and Tom Falzone, and Richard Stewart was a video.
Cool. And so that was a full-time team as well, correct?
Yes.
I remember hearing about Air Moves. Tell me about that experience, that team experience.
It was, just an incredible opportunity. It was great being in Arizona, and it was really building, the kind of support the Drop Zone found it worth giving was building as the teams were growing and as more people were starting to get into competition, more teams were starting to train. People were just starting to hire coaches and go to the Drop Zone where the coach was located. And Paris saw this all coming together and asked me, to come and start a team. And I said to them, I'll do it, but I get to pick the team. I get to pick the team completely. And having the chance, before then, you had to also take a team who had the money to do it. They had to be able to come up with the money. Even if you're getting some support from the Drop Zone, you still got to survive. You still have to get by. And it gave me a chance to just pick exactly the people I wanted. And asking James, I taught to skydive when he was 14, and the chance we'd always talked about getting on a team together, talked about winning the Nationals, winning the World Mate someday, and this was finally the chance to do that. Troy and I had become really good friends, and I had coached his team at the University of Colorado, and he was someone I really wanted to get out. I met Tom out in California, had tryouts out there, and he did terrific. Richard was our cameraman on the Force before, so it was a chance to just put this perfect team. My thoughts at that time, this is the ideal team that I really want to have. We have a chance to train, the way I really want to train. By that time, I started to learn how to train, because you're just tripping over yourself when you first start. You just jump, 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 jump. You haven't really put together a strategic plan of how to do it. Now I'd actually started to come up with a plan. We had a chance to put the right team together, an opportunity to run the plan.
What was that plan like at the time? What changes had you made from teams before?
Doing more structured basic work, get good at the basics, get really good at the foundation. Before you start trying to add all the little quicker things, spend the time really getting good at the basics. It's something I learned from watching the other teams, but I never spent enough time with the team really there before then adding on to it in short, that was a big part of it. There's a lot more specifics that went along with it, but in short, that was it. And we got right at it, and it was great. The experience at Paris was terrific. The drop zone was, welcomed the team. Yeah, it was great.
How long did you guys jump together, and how many jumps did you make in that amount of time?
It turned out to be about 5 months, maybe 4 or 5 months, and made 300 jumps, maybe. And we're averaging about 15.
Nice.
Which was a lot. We went to Eloy for the Valentine's Day meet, which used to be, one of the big meets that there was in the off season, and the Knights were there too, and we were neck and neck with the Knights at that time.
That's really cool. And then, if you don't mind me asking you this, there was an incident that happened that was life-changing for you, that I think brought that team training to an end. Would you mind telling us some about that?
Yeah, there was an aircraft accident. It's on a regular training day, normal, beautiful day at Skydive Paris, and there was an accident that killed 16 of the 22 people on the plane and injured everybody else.
And what happened to you during that accident?
Well, I personally was, broke my neck, cracked my skull, had a lot of other injuries. I was out for about 6 weeks in a coma. James was killed in the crash, which was devastating, of course, as were many instructors. And you look at any Twin Otter taking off from your drop zone, most of the people on it.
Yeah.
Troy and Tom were also injured. Richard, somehow, his camera had broken right before that load, and he asked a friend to fill in for him while he could go and fix his camera. So he managed to miss the airplane. This was minutes before the plane took off. And the Dave Clark was the guy who took his place, who didn't make it through the crash either.
Yeah, that's horrible. I can't imagine going through an experience like that. While you were recovering from the accident, you wanted to get back into competition, I imagine. Did that happen immediately, or was there? If you can kind of talk me through, your feelings and kind of the timeline on that.
Well, when I basically woke up 6 weeks later, I had no idea of what had happened or what was going on. I weighed about 125 pounds, and you feel very, very brittle, very fragile. I had the good fortune of not being hurt worse. I was still capable of moving everything. I had no paralysis at all. My other lung had collapsed in the crash, but it was coming back also, so there shouldn't be any permanent damage that was going to stop me from doing anything, which was so lucky to be able to not be hurt worse. And, quickly realized that regardless of what the doctors say, because they always tell you can't do anything, realized that, I could get back to this if I wanted to. And after having had the chance, when we were training, it was really the ultimate living your dream. I had the team of my dreams, the location of my dreams. We're progressing, so well. The team, it's everything I had ever wanted. And once you've had a chance to experience life like that, and you're pouring your heart and soul into it, you're working hard to make it happen, and you can see your goals. You can see, man, I'm getting there. We're getting there. We're on target to do this. Once you've had a chance to do that, you really don't want to accept a life that doesn't have that in it.
Yeah.
And once I realized that I should be able to jump again, there really wasn't anything that was going to stop me from jumping, I immediately wanted to get back to it.
And what was your plan? What were your action steps from that point?
I called Mike Trad from the hospital, who was the point flyer for Coolidge Force, and asked if he would come out and be the point, in James' position. and Mike agreed to. I told them all to be there, that I had a halo on, it's kind of a cast they put on your head, a frame, bars they put on your head, they screw into your skull when you break your neck to hold your head still. And I said, when I get this off, give me a couple weeks, I'll be ready to jump. So I've scheduled to get it off in another month or so. And everybody was going to be moving out, and we were going to start jumping right from there. I got the halo off and then realized I needed to have more neck surgery. I called Kirk Werner, who had been on a team called the Magnet Men, who was one of the top teams when the Coolidge Force was competing. And Kirk and I had, hit it off before, and I knew the kind of, competitor that he was and the kind of friend that he was. So I called Kirk and asked him to come take my spot. And he did. So while I was in for neck surgery, Air Move started training again with Troy and Tom and Kirk and Mike.
Okay.
And that's the team that made it to the Nationals. I had neck surgery. 10 weeks later, I was able to, start jumping. And at the Nationals, they still hadn't had, the team wasn't that experienced at that time. Troy and Tom had just done what we had done that year. Mikey was the most experienced, and Kirk also. But without that much training, they were just really trying to get things sorted out. And there was certain jumps, all the times when there were slot switchers that gave us problems. And I was recovering pretty well, had much more experience than all of those guys did. Got in a few jumps before the Nationals, and then at the Nationals, they were the primary four. But when there was a particular jump that was a real memory mess, if we thought it was a benefit, I would step into that slot at the Nationals.
Oh, okay.
And just fly that slot. I think I did, 4 or 5 jumps at the Nationals that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Just going back just a little bit, how did you feel your first jump back after the accident?
I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was just riding in the plane with the guys. It had been exactly 10 weeks that the doctor said I had to wait before I made a jump. He said, of course, you should never jump again, but if you're going to, wait at least 10 weeks. I had my old rig, which had an old 220 Raider canopy on it, which no new jumpers will be familiar with, but it was absolutely guaranteed to open slow. I was still wearing a padded neck brace, and I'd been riding in the airplane with the guys sometimes just to debrief video because we were doing back-to-backs and getting the jumps in. And I just thought, man, it's been 10 weeks. If I want to go, I can go. And I watched them exit and just sat there just on the edge. Do I go? Do I not go? Do I go? Do I not go? What should I do? And I just said, screw it, and just dove out of the airplane and flew down to him and cheered him on. And it was great. Just hitting the air again was like, man, I was back at home. I was flying free again. The jump was fine. The opening was fine. Everything was fine.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great, what a great story. What a great comeback story. At Nationals that year, when you said that you went in for 4 or 5 rounds, did you still have the neck brace on, or were you?
Yeah, the padded neck brace.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's the only time I wore weights in my life too, because I was still about 140 pounds. But I had a rig with a Raider in it that probably weighed 40 pounds also, so that helped.
Did you find that inhibited your movement at all, or limited you in any way?
Yeah, but it was already. It was already inhibited. It had just been operated on 10 months before and in a halo for 3 months before the operation. So
your movement was limited anyway?
Yeah, it was, but it was the last thing on my mind on the jump.
Yeah, I'll bet. So we'll skip forward a little bit. Nick and I were talking about in his podcast, he brought up a video we're all familiar with when you're at the 1995 World Championships. You got your headphones on and you're dirt diving. You're walking through the whole process of the jump, and one of the many things that I look up to you for is the way that you visualize and that whole process that you go through. And we were actually talking some of it last night, because with my new experience with Airspeed, the 4-way is a bit faster than what I'm used to in 8-way, and you're giving me some tips there on maybe ways to think about it. What's your pre-competition and your pre-jump process like?
I mean, the pre-competition is you've done, there's so much technical training. There's so many things to learn that you have to go through. And you do that early on, right? You build the basic foundation of all the skills you need. You learn all the different techniques to specific blocks and specific moves. You work all that through, but when you finally get the competition, all that has to be instinct. All that, it's either there or it's not there. You can't be thinking about any of those things while you're there. You have to have visualized it enough by that point, gone through it enough by that point that you just think the move and you've got it. And your awareness is good enough that if things are a little off, you're ready to adjust as you're doing it. But you have to be, by competition, it has to all be automatic for you at that point. So in the prep for competition, the whole training is designed to do that, to do those things early and then be transitioning over to pretty much attitude training before the meet. Make sure you're not too tied up. Make sure you're not trying to do everything technically perfect all the time, because technically perfect might not be what works. That only works if everybody does what's technically perfect at the right time. And you're constantly making little adjustments. The technique will be close enough. If you're aware of what's going on and you've got the right attitude, you'll make the adjustments. You're covering for each other all the time.
Yeah, Scott Rhodes told me a long time ago, skydiving is all about problem solving.
Yeah. And you don't have time to think about how to solve the problem while you're doing it. You're seeing it and you're responding correctly. I mean, it's a 35 or 50-second time clock. We don't have time to deliberate how to fix these things.
Yeah.
It has to be happening on instinct. And then when I'm dirt diving myself before a jump, it's purely trying to get the feeling I want the jump to have, the attitude that I want the jump to have. That's what I'm doing. It's the calmness, it's the confidence, it's the determination, for me, it's almost a little bit angry. Not like outraged or anything, but just a little bit, make it happen, make it happen, make it happen. So I try to, once you get to competition, it's all having the right attitude. So everything I'm doing at that point is trying to fuel that attitude.
That's incredible advice. Last night you were telling me that you spent hours and hours visualizing, because there was a point in time, I don't know if you were talking about 8-way, I think when you guys started doing 8-way, because it was different from 4-way, it was, lacked the familiarity to you at the time, so you were spending hours visualizing, and can you tell us some of what you were telling me last night about that visualization process?
Sure. After so many years of doing 4-way, and really, visualization is a key skill in formation skydiving, and in many things, but especially for formation skydiving, because we have such little time to actually do it. If we're jumping 15 jumps a day, that's 15 minutes max of actual free fall time. It's seconds of each particular move. And the tunnel is great to be able to go through and get repetitions on a lot of things, but it's still not exactly the same, as we well know. So really learning to visualize and learning the skill of visualization is huge. When I was doing 4-way for so many years, my visualization skills for 4-way were great. You could give me any 4-way jump anytime, and I could paint that picture of it in my mind from above, from my own slot. I could do it from Kirk's slot watching me. I could visualize everything just in a second. And visualization is the skill of creating the pictures in your mind. And how clear those pictures are is how good your visualization skills are. And it would be with perfect clarity, like watching a high-def video. We started doing 8-way then. And, immediately I'm looking at my skydiving, and I'm making mistakes in 8-way I hadn't made for a long time in 4-way. I'm brain locking all the time. I'm busting points. I'm screwing up the moves. I'm looking, I go, man, what am I doing? What am I doing? What happened to me? Thought I was good. I thought I was good at this. And I said, man, I should have quit last year. I think I've lost it. I don't think I've got it anymore.
I was going through some of those same emotions not too long ago when I started with Airspeed. Yeah.
And then I was visualizing in the airplane for 8-way, and it suddenly occurred to me that my visualization stunk. I couldn't see anything in 8-way. I could see my own little piece of the world. I could see what I was touching, what I was doing, but I couldn't see from above the 8-way. I didn't understand for visualization purposes how all the pieces work together, the geometry of it all. I didn't have the awareness from my slot to be able to see everything. I didn't have these pictures. And we were just about to take a week or two off, and I went home that week, and I thought, I need to learn to visualize. I need to practice visualizing 8-way. And I spent, at least a couple hours a day just sitting there practicing painting these pictures in my mind. And by the end of that time off, I had trained the skill. I could now see 8-way, not quite as well as 4-way, but pretty well. And as soon as I got back, my skydiving was far better than it was before, just because I could see it in the airplane. I mean, if you're on the way to altitude and you can't even imagine how to do it correctly, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, for sure.
And now I could see it perfectly clear, so I could just relax and trust those instincts I was talking about. It's hard to have the right attitude when you don't even know what you're trying to do.
And is that something you developed as a young competitor, or is that something that had to evolve over time?
It definitely evolved over time. I realized the importance of it over time. I've always been someone with a good imagination, so pretending. I remember watching the tag team or watching the Golden Knights years ago, and man, I want to be doing that. And I'd think, watch those jumps, think about me doing those jumps, visualize me doing those jumps. But it was over time that I actually learned that this is a skill that is as important, if not more important, than most of the other skills that we learn to become FS competitors. When I was injured, I hadn't jumped since April at the Nationals. I was, not in good physical shape at all. I was going in a different slot for each jump that I went to at the Nationals. They were all slot switchers, but I had been visualizing so much that I could still do it.
Wow, even with not that much training going up to that competition, right?
Yeah, none basically.
Wow. Yeah, when I was getting ready to, when I found out that I was going to Airspeed, I watched hours and hours of video and did a lot of visualization. But some of the pointers that you were giving me last night really helped me, and I've already started putting those in action in my visualization process. So I really appreciate that, and it's so cool that I get to have this relationship with one of my heroes, to where I'm getting mentorship from you even now. It's such a cool relationship, and I think skydiving is probably one of the only professional sports that you can get that in, or one of the only sports that you have so much interaction from young jumpers to the professionals.
It's a really tight community. It's a really special place, and to hear you even say, "I'm your hero," is just making me laugh over here.
Yeah, I can't wait to jump with you tomorrow. It's going to be so much fun.
Me too.
And now backtracking a little bit more, we were talking, I think we left off when you were on air moves. You did the competition there. What was the next progression in your competition history?
The next year, we did another air moves team. It was funny because this is the close community in skydiving, right? So Jack Jeffrey's team from DeLand and the Golden Knights were our main competition. And Jack's team ended up winning. The Knights were second. Air Moves came in third. So I was coaching. I think I was in Australia, and Jack calls me on the phone, and basically says, I have a slot on my team I need to fill. If I was going to take somebody from your team, who would you tell me to take? That was really, because that's what he was. The other top team was our team.
Did he know what the answer to that question was going to be when he called?
He might have. But he wanted, confirmation of it. And I laughed. But you know what? I didn't even hesitate to give it to him. They were the U.S. team that year. they were going to the world meet. Everybody who was on my team would have loved to be, going to the world meet.
Yeah.
And once the team is selected for the world meet, that's the U.S. team. So I didn't hesitate for a moment. I said, "You got to have Kirk." I said, I realize you're screwing me, but we'll figure it out. I mean, this is the world meet. This is the U.S. team. You got to have Kirk Werner. And Jack had coached Kirk before when he was on Magnet Men, but not to the level that Air Moves had gotten. And he, I think he pretty well was like, "Yep, I thought so. I just wanted to know." So,
nice.
and he basically called Kirk, and Kirk called me. He said, "Dan, what I wanted to go to the world meet." I said, "It's cool, man. It's good."
So you didn't make him sweat at all?
Nah. Nope, he just did. And then, so then we built a new Air Moves team with Tom and myself and Mark Kirkby and John Hamilton and Sean Capogreco.
Nice.
It's a small little community, isn't it? It's fun to go back and think of this and how it's all so connected here. I mean, Kurt and I were talking when you came over, and we realized again that we both started at the same drop zone in Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you guys didn't know that about each other.
We did, but
okay.
you forget about that.
Right.
It's been so long ago, and it's just it's a small little world, and it's really cool to have. It's one of the things I love about having as many years into it and being as old as I am, is I get to look back on such an amazing history and transition of different friends and different relationships. I remember the first time I met you. I mean, your retirement right now, I'm like, man, it seems to me like you just got here.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes by fast.
And watching your whole, progression through it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. What an incredibly rich life, to be able to look back at that stuff. And I feel the same way when I look back at my experience. My experience is just a fraction of yours. It's incredible.
And then to have a chance to do 8-way with these guys tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look who we've got for this. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And we were jumping yesterday, and there was it's August in Eloy. There's hardly anybody around. It was, for the most part, most of the time, it was, the 8 of us, 9 of us in the hangar, But just such a great chance to, guys I've competed against, guys I've competed with, to get together after all these years and just have a great time doing the sport that you love for no purpose other than it's just so much damn fun. You can't possibly say no to that opportunity.
Oh, yeah, it is so much fun. I remember when you accepted the offer to come jump with us, and I think it was 2015. We wanted to make a jump with you, and it was a pretty quick sequence from what I remember. Can you tell us about that story?
We were as nationals in Eloy, and, just in my own dumbass way, of course, had thrown out to the Knights, hey, if you guys, are short anybody, let me know, because, of course, I'd love the opportunity to do an 8-way with the Knights. Who wouldn't love this? But never, but that doesn't happen. It's, you don't have that chance at the Nationals. You've got your team there. The Nationals are the next day. You're not going to just go up and do a jump like that. And I was driving back to the hotel in Casa Grande. I think I got a call from Larry, and he said, "Can you be here in 20 minutes?" And I said, "For what?" And he goes, "To do an 8-way with the Knights." And I just about got in a crash, spinning the car around. And then I was driving back out thinking to myself, oh, man, you're in way over your head. You're in way over your head to be, trying to go up and do this. You're talking a bunch of smack, telling these guys if they needed anybody, you'd be happy to fill in. You are nowhere near up for the job. And, we dirt dove it really quickly. It wasn't, it was a short call.
Right.
And it was a really fast jump. And I remember sitting in the airplane, really just shitting myself, basically to be there at all. And then, remembered again back to James' attitude and how, man, it's a game. Just do it because you're gonna love it. What a chance this is. You're jumping with the best 8-way team in the world. They actually called you and said, come on out and do it. Just go out there and let her rip.
Well, we all looked up to you, and it was a big morale booster for us too, having you there, and seeing you on the plane and doing your visualization. It was just so cool. I remember it's making the hair stand up in my arms now, but I remember getting goosebumps at that time too.
Man, it was it was amazing experience to have that. And what an opportunity. I mean, this is the payoff, I guess, for all the years of training that I did, that I got to do that jump then and have the day we're going to have tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's a great payoff.
It is, for sure. Now, to backtrack again a little bit, because I really want to hear more about your competitive journey, and I really want everybody who's listening out there to hear it as well. So, Kirk went to Dan's team, or I'm sorry, Jack's team, and what happened with your team from there?
We picked up Mark and Mark Kirkby, John Hamilton, Sean Capagreco. We were training. They were training.
Was Mark a relatively unknown guy at that point?
Mark was on a team, the second team at Paris. So I was coaching Mark. It was basically the Paris Gumbies at that point. So he was skydiving at a good level, He hadn't done that much of it. I think they came in fourth behind Air Moves that year. So Mark was already a strong flyer, and Mark and John were both on that team.
Okay.
So it was a good place to start from, and I had coached them both. So we were all, singing the same music anyway.
Nice.
And it was a good nationals. Jack's team still won, but I think we averaged 17 something, and they averaged half a point more. So it was good. And then they went to the nationals and got beat by the tag team, by the French team again.
And that was at nationals or at the World Meet?
At the World Meet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, at the World Meet in '93. And Kirk, who had now been on a team with me and been on a team with Jack, then started to say, man, we got to get you two on the team. You guys have to be on a team together. And Jack and I had competed against each other, and we had done, gotten together to do 8-way or 10-way at different years at the Nationals. But never looked at each other and thought, man, that's a guy I would love to do a team with. I look at you and think, man, I would have loved to have been able to do a team with Matt. Looking at Jack then, it was like, you know what? Somebody's going to get their ass kicked if we're on a team together. And he thought the same thing. And Kirk was just adamant, man. No, you guys, it's going to work great. I've been on teams with both of you. This is the team it's going to take if we want to beat the French team. If we want to win the World Meet, this is the only team we can put together. And so Jack and I, talked about it. We decided, he wanted to have another chance of winning the World Meet. He was sick of getting beat by the French. I was sick of getting beat by the team who was getting beat by the French. And we had tryouts for it in DeLand. And I brought Mark with me. And they said, who do you want for the tryout? I said, Mark. Well, who else? There isn't anybody else. It's just Mark. You don't have anybody else? I said, I've tried everybody else out. I've been on teams with the other guys who I know, and it's Mark. And the whole tryout, just so you guys know, said to Jack and Kirk, just so you guys know, this is just so that you find out that it's Mark. There's no tryouts going on here. And they did 3 or 4 jumps with Mark. We're like, okay, okay. This is a decision made. And John Lemming was the camera.
Nice.
And Airspeed was formed.
And, I remember when I first made the team, I can remember you guys coming out in a van at that point, I think, out to Rayford. Yeah. You guys were training out there. I was like, wow, that's Airspeed. But it's just seeing you guys out there and watching you train. And, that was a big inspiration for me at the time. So you guys had Airspeed together, and that was what year?
End of 93, beginning of 94.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did things go from there?
It went great. It went great. It was amazing. As much as Jack and I we'll see how this works out. He's now one of my best friends in the world. We came up with a really good plan of how we're going to do this, because we were 2 teams that had been competing against each other for years. We had a serious rivalry going on, and we also had different ways of doing things. There was kind of a East Coast, West Coast technique, East Coast, West Coast mentality. And we had to figure out how we were going to be able to combine these 2 things, how we could pick the best from both.
And what were some of those differences?
I mean, the basic way we exited was different. The East Coast was more technique. The West Coast was more attitude. We came off with the point floating off the front rather than diving, so it was mirror imaged of the whole thing.
Oh wow!
The way they were doing it. But the good thing was, Jack and I both. It wasn't like either one of us showed up and wanted to be right. We didn't want to get our way. Whatever our ways were, we're losing. Whoever it was, the French had won these years for 4 world meets in a row. So whatever we had on our own wasn't good enough, and we knew that we needed to be able to combine these things, and we didn't care who was right and who was wrong. There was no ego like that involved with it. So we made a plan. I don't remember exactly how long it was, but at least for the first 2 weeks, Jack was just going to run it. We're going to do everything exactly the way Jack wanted to do it, and I was going to keep my mouth shut, which it's not an easy task for me sometimes. And after those 2 weeks, then it was going to be handed over to me, and I would say, "Here's how we do it." And we compared things, we timed things, we looked at the different exits and saw which one was better. We looked at the different techniques and we timed which one of these is better, and ended up coming up with basically a hybrid where we did some exits depending on which was quicker to the second point.
Nice.
Engineering-wise, we did slot switchers, mirror image. We switched everybody just to keep the most efficient transition. We were trying all sorts of things. But because we both wanted to win, and we weren't trying to push our philosophy over on anybody, we were able to combine it great. And Kirk and Mark, as experienced as they were the younger, the newer of the team. Mm-hmm. And Jack had his ways, I had my ways. Those guys didn't have ways. They had done it both, and they weren't so attached to it, so they were more able to come up with new ideas completely. Right? They'd come up with something neither of us had ever thought of.
Oh, nice.
Which was great. We'd be grabbing that too. So it was a great team, great friendships, great combination.
That's an incredible mix. Yeah. So you guys obviously went on to do some great things there. In 1995, you guys were selected as the U.S. team, and if you can tell us some about that competition.
Well, it was, you showed up, the thing you've been waiting for, the thing you've been hunting for, the thing you've been charging for all these years, to finally get there, and all the effort, all the work that we had put into it. And then you need to be able to put all that effort into it and then show up and kind of not give a shit. You need to be able to not get too stressed about that. Go back to, again, we're just here to have a good time. And we have a good time when we rock these jumps. And we know what we need to do to rock them. And we're not going to, our plan, go up, do the best we can possibly do, and make them beat it. And if we can track away on a jump and think, man, we tore that up, and they beat it, well, all right. But let's not just go hand them over anything. Let's not go scared. I remember a dirt dive. We were walking through the jump, and the dirt dive felt tentative. The dirt dive felt scared, and Kirk just said, "Stop!" He goes, "I'm going home if we're going to skydive like that." And just the whole attitude switch on the jump there. But to keep that attitude while in the pressure of something your whole life for the last 10 years had been working up to this moment. I remember one jump in particular that we came out the door. It was, you might remember the points, but it was arrowhead to a monopod, which is almost the exact same formation.
Right.
Right. It just, you build from the diamond to the pod on the back. And we came out the door, and the exit wasn't great, and there was communication that was off, and we busted the first couple of points, and then we didn't know which one we were on. It's like, well, I think we're doing are you guys doing a monopod or an arrowhead up there? Because we're doing a monopod on the back. And it took like about 7 seconds for us to get it sorted out. And then we had what I think was probably the fastest four-way skydive that had ever been done. Only for 28 seconds. But it was incredible. It was incredible how fast the jump was. I even wrote about it in my book. There's a little section, a little chapter about it. And we landed from that jump, and we thought, what was that? What the hell was that? What happened? We've never moved that fast. We've never gone that hard. It's never been that calm and that aggressive. And Matt said, I'll go screw up every exit if we're going to be able to do that. I'd rather do that for 28 seconds than 75% of that for 35 seconds. And we really spent some time, trying to figure out what that was. And part of it was and I'm sure you've had a similar experience, once you've just made a mistake, you've just blown it. Now there's a lot of jump left. There's just a certain carefree, let it go. You're not worried about screwing up anymore. Yeah. Everybody we were calm enough and well trained enough that we stopped, we took a breath, calmed down, and everybody knew exactly what we were going to do. And then let her rip. But you let go completely of the worrying about. We don't need to worry about it anymore. We already screwed up. And trying to bring that into every jump. Now, can we get that attitude without screwing up first? And it was an amazing jump, an amazing experience.
Were you able to replicate that for the rest of the jumps of the competition?
No. And we kept trying to replicate that for the rest of our competition careers, sometimes with more success than others. And I also remember there was live scoring. So as we were tracking off, it was scored. It was done. And we got out for round 10. And we were breaking. It was okay jump. It wasn't great. It didn't have that attitude that I was talking about. It was one of those where we're only 3 points ahead or something, and you're 3 points ahead going in the last round. The tendency is to hold those points like they're a baby, and you don't want to drop them. Oh, be careful! Yeah. Don't let go of those points. Where you're 3 points behind and you're just balls out.
Gunning. Yeah.
It's way better to be a couple points behind. Not actually, but you know what I mean. And so it was an okay jump, but we got under canopy and we could see people running out and waving U.S. flags, and we pulled it off, and we landed, and there was the whole champagne celebration and people running out and friends, and it was great, it was good. And then everybody, walked away, and Jack and I were still standing out there in the landing area, and everybody walked away, and we won. We finally won. We won the world meet. And we looked at each other and says, "Is that it?" It was like, that's pretty much it. It's skydiving. You didn't just win a fortune or anything. That's it. Like, I'll take it. Yeah. But it's you're so set on trying to win. The actual win itself is not as big a part of the whole experience that it is to get you to where you can win. I remember competitions where we didn't do our best. We didn't do our best, but we won. And it was, you never feel that great about that. Yeah. And other competitions where we rocked and got beat. And, thinking back on it, I you don't like to lose. But losing when you've gone up and kicked ass, you've done the best you can do, and you get beat by a better team, all right, it is what it is. So really trying to focus not about the winning or losing, but about putting your best up there every time, every jump. Let them try to beat it if they can. I
told my guys on the 8-way team as I was retiring, I gave them it was a replica of King Leonidas's Spartan helmet, and on the plaque, in that I said the prize is in the process, because it's not really the competition itself, but it's the whole, it's the ups and downs, it's the, the highs and lows of training to get there, what you really appreciate and what you really remember. If you win a competition, that's definitely an icing on the cake. That's a goal that you've been going for, but it's all about the process.
Couldn't agree more. I always thought winning wasn't nearly as good as losing did suck.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's way unbalanced.
I was always bummed, when we lost, but when we won, the win itself wasn't as great as, again, the performance and the whole route to getting there.
I remember you telling me a story. I don't remember exactly who it was or how it went, but you were on the podium, and I think you'd won the competition. I'm wondering if this is the '95 World Championships, but going up and talking to your rival competitor. Do you remember what that story was? And if you can, I think you had some interaction with him on the podium. You'd been gunning for him for such a long time.
Philippe Chorneau. It wasn't on the podium, though.
Okay.
But it was Philippe was the captain of. This may not be what you were talking
No, I
about,
think
but
it is.
it's a great story. Philippe was the captain of the French team for those years, and he led his team to 4 consecutive World Championships. The whole time while we were competing, and we were trying to catch up with them, he was leading the way. And I met him in DeLand when I was down there with Greene County Fusion the first year that they had the tag team together. And, we're kids. We became, good friends down there. And, the same way that we are. I love you. I want to kill you.
Yeah.
And it was after the '93 World Meet. And we had already started talking about Airspeed before the World Meet. The conversation had come up. And Philippe had won the World Championships, and we were having a drink to congratulate him. And I said to him, man, I said, next year is my year. Next year is my year. I said, I'm coming for you this time. And he said, nope. He goes, I'm, in that very smooth French accent. No, I'm done. I'm done. I'm finished. And I said, man, I'm putting the team together now. I'm putting the team together that's going to take you down. I said, you can't quit now. I said, it's my dream to kick your ass. And he said, you will die with that dream.
That was the story I was thinking of, yeah.
And I thought, you will die with that dream. I thought, that is the best line I've ever heard in my life. I wish someday I hope I have the chance to to say that to someone.
That's awesome.
And so on that note, I bought him another drink, and he retired and undefeated.
Wow, nice. After your '95 World Championships with Airspeed, you guys decided to make the switch to 8-way. You were still doing 4-way, but you decided to take on 8-way as well. How did that whole transition come about?
Well, it started with Craig Girard becoming available, because we didn't know how to do 8-way. But Craig was a good friend of ours. We'd competed again. When air moves and vertical speed were competing against each other, and before then, when the Force and the DeLand teams were competing, Craig was on the Golden Knights teams the whole time, and it was a 3-way battle each time. And became great friends with all of us. And then Craig got out of the Army, and I remember talking to Larry Hill and saying, Larry, we got to get Craig out to Arizona now that he's out. And Larry's like, well, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know what we're going to do yet, but we got to get him. We're going to do something cool. And Larry was, what do you think you can win 8-way? And I was like, well, man, I have no idea if we can do that or not. But we'll get Craig out here. We'll get another 4-way team started. And a lot of it was Larry's motivation also for really wanting to win 8-way. The Golden Knights have been consistently winning now for a while, and to have a chance, we got tag in 4-way. Now let's see if we can go after the Golden Knights. So Craig came out. We had other teammates of ours who started a second 4-way team. So we had the 2 4-way teams who was also doing 8-way. And in '96, it was mostly 8-way who were doing 2 4-way teams. At that point, we thought we probably were ahead enough in 4-way that we could focus mostly on 8-way and hopefully hold on and not end up getting our butts kicked in both.
And how did that go for you when you tried to do both at that level?
Man, I mean, it's awesome. But it's a lot. It's a lot to do. We won the World Cup in '96 in both. Gold Knights weren't there. It's not everybody's there necessarily. So we got it.
Nonetheless, that's a huge achievement to win both.
It was great. And it was funny. When we first started doing 8-way, we had 2 4-way teams who were both averaging 20 plus, which at that time was the top, of the game. Basically, there was very few teams that were 20 and over. And we started doing 8-way, and from the first day, we were averaging 15 right out the gate. And we thought, man, this is great. What a great place to start. And then 300 jumps later, we were averaging 15.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, man, we're doing something wrong here. We haven't gained a point on this. And finally started learning more the discipline of 8-way. I mean, Craig had been saying it, but we thought we were better than that. He wasn't used to dealing with guys who were as good as we thought we were. And it came back to, though, my other training plan. When we came back to get good at the basics, now we got to get good at 8-way basics. And as soon as we really put the attention to that, we went right from 15 to 18, pretty quickly. But it was a big experience. Just sticking with it long enough while you're not, so many times teams seem we should be progressing. Why are we not progressing? We didn't progress for 300 jumps, but we got through that and then took a jump, took a big leap forward. So it was a good experience to learn that, you just got to fight it out for a while sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, and that's part of that process, right? Sometimes you're going to hit those lows, and those lows are going to last a long time, and it takes a lot of internal fortitude to be able to push through those, because you've got a lot of things, telling you, and your monkey mind telling you, man, should we really be doing this? Should I be doing this? But you eventually push through those, or you reevaluate, and you get through it. It's all part of the process.
And it was a great experience, and it was great to be able to, because we'd competed with the Knights before, but there was never any chance of, of competing against them to actually go head to head. And at the '96 Nationals was the first time, and man, that was, there's something really special. I think in skydiving, for me at least, it's such a close group. The skydivers in general, and then the competitors in particular, and the top competitors in particular on that. I mean, again, looking, at yourself. These are guys you really admire, really respect, really love, really enjoy, and it's a battle, and we're gonna go at it, and I'm gonna do everything I can, to beat you. But there's never any animosity. At least not. I don't get any stronger if it was someone I don't like.
Right.
If that's the case, well, let's just fight then. Let's skip the 8-way. But to have, to be able to go head to head with people that you really do respect, you really do admire, you really do love, and to be able to compete at that level and to battle it out with them, and it's all good. It's all good. They're coming after you. You're going after them, and when it's done, and you'll meet at the bar.
Yeah. I remember for the Golden Knights, that was my first year with the 8-way team, and being the alternate. It was just such an incredible experience up there at the ranch. I remember the way it worked out was Golden Knights won that year, but after that, you guys continued to do 8-way, and so what were the next years like? You guys had a pretty long period of dominance there in the 8-way category, and if you can tell us about how from 98, 99, right around that time period.
That was 96 in the ranch. 97, it was close with the Knights again, but the Knights won. 98, same thing. The Knights won. Finally in 99, you guys didn't have a great meet, and we did. And we won that year. Went to the world meet. Actually won in 98. That was the selection. Because at 99, right before the world meet, you guys beat us at the Nationals. Right before we're going to the world meet. Thanks a lot. That was a real confidence booster for us. And went and won the world meet. And then there was a big turnover in the Knights at that point. And we weren't still training, but we would put the team back together and had enough training, enough experience on the team that we could still do pretty well. And the Knights were in transition, so we ended up winning in 2000, and then we went to the 2001 World Meet without really training. And then the Knights had a lot of new guys on the team at that point. And 8-way is hard. 8-way it takes some time, and it takes some training, and it takes some repetition. And there was no 16-foot tunnel to be, training all this stuff in at that time.
Right.
And there was a series of years while the Knights were building up the new team that we had the same guys. We had the same guys who, we could get back together and do pretty good without practice while the Knights were a much newer team. And I remember there's 3 or 4 nationals in a row where we won, but every year the Knights were just closer and closer. And I remember the last one was in Texas, one of the nationals in Texas.
I think it was 2010 maybe.
Was it that late?
9 or 10, yeah.
And I remember we got done with the meet, and I remember telling Airspeed, and we won that meet, and I was like, guys, but that's the last time we're ever going to win A-Way. Because you could just see the Knights are getting better and better and better, and we're getting a little worse and worse and worse. And I said, we'll never be able to pull this off again. And at that time, I mean, the Knights have now had a series of dominance, not just in winning, because sometimes you win, like we were winning that because the Knights weren't as strong as they were before. But now the Knights have consistently won, and won at a level that, I mean, you guys averaged 24 or whatever, ridiculous.
23-9 in 2016 was our highest.
I mean, and that's not only is nobody close, but that's not just showing that you're better than everybody else, but showing that you can't even imagine 8-way going that fast, and it raised the bar to that level. It's been amazing to watch. We were watching some video today of the Knights, just looking at it, and how do you do that? How is that even possible? And Kurt was saying, well, there's a lot of trust. There's a lot of trust that things are going to be there. A lot of it is the key speed, where you're checking things, but you're checking them with the complete expectation that stuff's done. I don't need to check too much. It's the confidence, the trust, the speed that goes along with it. It's like I said, there's been times before that we won a meet that we really didn't do that well at. But to see the run that the Knights have had and the level that they've taken 8-way to is unbelievable.
Well, it's it's been a great relationship with you guys, and we've learned so many lessons from you along the way. It's just going back to the skydiving community, how everybody just, we all make each other stronger. We share information. We were just talking about that last night about sharing information. That's where I got it from you. I was kind of raised up when I was a newer member on the 8-way team that, we're gonna hold on to this information. We're gonna keep it close to the chest. But that was before we had wind tunnels too, which kind of brought things together. But I remember it at some point in my competitive career, I remember hearing from you and Kirk Werner. We were like, no, we're gonna, you guys were helping us out with something, and I can't remember if it was 4-way or 8-way exactly, but you guys were, you were giving us all the information that you had, and I thought that was so awesome. And I remember, he said, yeah, we want to beat you guys at your best, basically, and I thought that was a great way to look at things, and I've tried to carry that with me, on throughout my skydiving career.
And that was something we really decided, because prior to Airspeed, with the 2 different coasts, it was much more of a rivalry, and teams weren't that likely to share what they were doing, and there wasn't as much video that you could get it and try to steal ideas from people. And we actually decided, let's just not do it that way. We knew putting this team together, we were going to have new ideas. It's a small sport. Let's bring the bar up in the entire sport. So sharing anything, whatever we came up with as we came up with it, sending the videos out, sharing the ideas with people. Thinking if we can give somebody information and they're a team that's, lower than us in terms of experience and where they're at. And we give them information and they can beat us with it, they deserve to. So I'd rather give it to them and stomp on them.
That's a great way to look at things. It's awesome. At what point did you decide to retire from full-time competitive skydiving, and why?
99 was the last year. Some of it was physical. There was had 3 cortisone shots before the world meet in 99, just because my neck was been giving me a lot of trouble, and it was definitely impacting my ability to skydive at all. Forget doing 4-way. And that, along with, man, it had been great. I'd now had 2 little kids, and thinking, I think it's been great. I think it's time to start looking past this, thinking more about the family, thinking more about future, and I at the same time where I physically don't know if I can do it anymore. So it was the combination of all those things.
And then you went from there. Is that when you started working at Skydive Paris? I
was still in Eloy for another 4 years after that, coaching, organizing events that Airspeed were all coaching at, working at the drop zone.
Okay.
And then I went out to Paris in 2003.
And what are you doing currently?
My main job is to run Skydive Paris, which is great. I get to do all the things that I love to do there. There's also things you don't love to do that you have to. But I don't just love competing. I love skydiving. I love the sport. I love being at the drop zone. I love seeing parachutes in the air. I love skydivers. I love looking at students that are, they all remind me of us when we were just learning, that glow in their eye, seeing people progressing at different levels. Seeing we had the JOS record, the jumpers over 70 record, the SOS record at Paris. Here's, men and women who are still jumping and going at it, and then guys who are 18 starting up, right now. Just to see the community that we have, people from around the world, it's really something very, very special. And to try to have a drop zone which embraces all of this, which is a place, it's a big drop zone, but I want it to feel like a warm, welcoming club where everybody's there. There's no bunch of egos running around the drop zone. All the different disciplines intermingle and look at what each other are doing, have mutual respect for all of the above. Everybody is excited for the students when the students are getting on the airplane. And just to have that kind of community is really special. And trying to create that at Paris, and I think successfully creating it has been great. We've got terrific people out there. And to be able to do that, and then still the guys invite me back to do 8-way at Nationals is more I can even ask for.
Yeah, that's awesome. Along the way here, within the last however many years, you've done some things, like you've written and published a book, and you've also done a TED Talk. Can you tell us some about your book?
I was originally coaching the Russian 8-way team, and the sponsor of the 8-way team was on the team. Didn't speak any English at all, and was speaking through the interpreter, who was also on the team. And he said, "We've been coached by a lot of people, but no one has ever told us the things you're telling us." And he said, "I want you to write a book about it." And I said, "What do you want the book to be about?" And he said, "How to win the world meet." And I said, "Well, that's like, 10% skydiving and 90% how to win anything, how to commit, how to train, how to, excel at anything." And he said, "Well, I don't, you can write anything you want, but it has to have the skydiving stuff in there too, step-by-step plan of how to win the world meet." And I said, "I don't have time. I'm running a drop zone. I'm coaching these teams. I don't have time to write a book." And he said, "How much time would it take?" And I said, "It would probably take me 3 months just to brain dump the information down on paper." He wanted to put it out in Russian. And he said, I'll basically sponsor you for 3 months to work half-time and to write this all down.
Wow.
So fortunately, Pat and Melanie at Skydive Paris were open to me having some time off, and I just basically brain dumped all the ideas I could think of how to win the world. A lot of the stuff was I'd already done, articles and things that I'd used with teams, used coaching, but ran through it all, and it was all just the skydiving, the competition end of things. There wasn't very few personal stories in it at all. And at the end of 3 months, he had lost interest. And he just, whatever, he's done. So I was sitting there with 200 pages of pretty good information that I had written, wondering, what am I supposed to do with this? And I sent it to, half a dozen friends. And I said, let me know, what you think of this. And everyone's got a different opinion, when it's something about writing. But they all came back. The one thing they all agreed on was there's a couple of times in here where you use a personal story to explain a point. And they said those were the ones we liked the most. The rest was good information. It was technical, how to do blocks, how to, what's the training plan going to be. But those personal stories, when you use those are the best. And I didn't want to just let all this work sit there. I had to do something with it at this point. And I thought, if I wanted to write a book that I want my kids to be able to appreciate, that I want my friends to be able to appreciate, not about skydiving, but it'll have skydiving in it, of course, but what would that book be like? And I went back and tried to write the personal stories that I thought were important and I thought had a big impact on me and that could be useful for other people also. And that's how it became above all else. Yeah.
It's an incredible book. I've read it. Can you tell people where they can find it?
It's on Amazon. It actually was published by a New York publishing house. It's at Square One. It shouldn't be too hard to find. Amazon, you can find everything, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, I had a pretty good response from it. At least the people who have cared to tell me have told me they got something worthwhile out of it. The people who thought it was crap were kind enough to not share that with me. So.
Yeah, it's we recommend it to everybody that's on or when I was on the Golden Knights, everybody that's on that team, and there's a lot of really powerful lessons in that book. It's great. Did that come before your TEDx talk, or
no? Actually the TED talk right after the book was published. Another skydiving friend in Belgium saw the book and was one of the organizers of the TED talk over there, and flew me out to Antwerp to do a TED talk.
What kind of preparation went into that talk?
It's hard because it has to be 18 minutes. You can't go more than 18 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I can't say anything. You can tell by the conversation we've been having now. I can't even get started in 18 minutes. So I had to go through the whole thing and I had to time it also, but think of how can I condense, it's my whole book basically in 18 minutes. How could I shorten it down to that? And, to think of what's worth saying, what's worthwhile, what are the most important points, how do I get them across? And I had never spoken like that. I mean, in skydiving we do, right? We're talking in front of people or organizing events or coaching and things, but I'd never gotten up in a opera house in Antwerp, Belgium with 1,500 Europeans there with English as their second language.
Wow.
I walked out and I told a joke. They didn't get it. And I thought, man, this is not going to be good.
You see a lot of blinking eyes and straight faces.
There's so many lights because it's a big opera house. I just, I tried to start with something funny and got no response at all. I was like, oh boy.
Did you have any coaching prior to that, or did you have to do it all on your own?
I didn't have to, but I did. Yeah.
Nice, that's incredible. It was a great talk.
Was it okay?
Yeah.
There's it's funny because there's a section in it that I just paused for a little while, and maybe it's maybe 10 seconds or so, and I had people tell me afterwards, man, we could tell how emotional you were. I mean, you really had to stop and gather your thoughts and gather yourself. That must have been hard for you. And I was like, I wasn't emotional. I was brain locking my ass off. I forgot what I was talking about.
Oh, man.
I just had to, And it was funny because the years, how it's funny how all the things intermix. The things that we do in skydiving training and how they're useful for other things that we do. And I've trained myself over years that when you have a brain lock, just stop, calm down. First thing, don't freak out. First thing is calm down and just look in, and you'll figure it out, right? If you start getting anxious and you just start grabbing stuff, or if you look away, it takes way longer. And I brain locked during the presentation, and I just stopped, took a breath. I did exactly what I did in skydiving, and it came back to me, and I was up and going.
Nice. That's awesome.
It's
Awesome
funny
story.
how those things work.
Yeah. I was wondering about that too when I watched it. Yeah, that little bit of a pause, and I thought the same exact thing. So you sold it well. It's the same thing in skydiving, right? You make a mistake, and you have you miss grip. You try to sell it to the judges.
Absolutely, it was exactly the same.
Nice, that's awesome. Well, Dan, I really appreciate this conversation. It's it's been a dream of mine to sit down with you and pick your brain. And before I ask you the final question, where can people find you online?
I've got a website, danbrodsky-chenfeld.com, and I'm at Skydive Paris, so not hard to find.
Awesome. And the final question, what advice would you give to other people that are looking to embark or continue a champion's journey of their own?
Make sure it's something that you truly, truly love doing. It's got to be an activity that you honestly are just passionate about, that you love every second of the challenge, that makes it all worth it. If you're doing it only for this end result goal that you're after, you won't have the strength to get through it. That's not a big enough reason. That's when you're on those, whether it's skydiving and you're on months of not having progressed, when you have all the obstacles, all the usually false limitations that you find yourself facing. Unless it's something that you really enjoy, love, find the purpose behind, then you won't be able to get through it. So if you're gonna set your goal, make sure it is something like that. I hear people, say, "But I want to win. I want to win this. I want to be a winner." It's like, forget it. That's not what it's about. I think that would be it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure, buddy.